Knock on the Saints door. Quarterback sneak by Tom Brady to the 43-year-old score. He did. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Now, spike that ball, Tom Brady. Who says I'm 43? He runs right up the gut and scores 6. 7. Handoff, run the ball. Fournette slashes away to the 40, to the 35, to the 30, to the 30, 25, to the 20. Fournette to the 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Run the ball, Leonard Fournette. Wow, what a blast up the gut, found daylight, and outran everybody. Fire the cannons, get them going. Bucs win. Bucs win, Bucs win. Fire them cannons.
Welcome to another episode of the Swords Up Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about our Week 4 matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers as we come back home from the road trip in Denver, and we're going to be having our first home game with fans in some capacity. So the game plan for this week is that we're going to have a test run with only about 750 fans, I think is the number. I think it's going to be just family of players, coaches, and other personnel. They're going to be allowed into the game. So similar to what most other teams have been doing in their trial run with fans. And then the plan for the rest of the season is going to be to have around 25% capacity of fans in the stands. And 2020 season ticket holders will have the chance to be able to purchase 2 game tickets with their credits from their season ticket pass this year. So obviously they're going to get first priority. And then other than that, anyone else can buy tickets. But obviously the selection is going to be limited. But the fact that we're getting fans back in the stands is nonetheless a great thing to see. But yeah, looking at our matchup this week against the Chargers, in this video, as always in my prediction videos and previews, I'm going to be talking about the stats and key players to the game, as well as giving a final prediction at the end. Now, starting off with the injury report like we always do, starting with the Chargers side of things, they got some encouraging news as Joey Bosa, who, as I'm recording this on a Thursday, missed practice yesterday with triceps and ankle injuries, but today he returned to practice in limited participation. So it looks like the Chargers are receiving good news about his status, and I think Bosa will end up playing this week. But they did suffer a pretty key injury last week in their loss to the Panthers, and that was with corner Chris Harris Jr. He suffered a foot injury in that game and could miss up to 6 weeks, and he has been placed on injured reserve. So yeah, that's a big blow to the Chargers team that was able to sign him in free agency and bolstering their secondary to make them one of the best in the NFL. Now looking at the Buccaneers side of things, Justin Watson was out last week with a shoulder injury. He was a full participant in practice today as I'm recording this. Sean Murphy-Bunting left the game in the second quarter last week with groin and hamstring injuries. He was a limited participant today. And Scotty Miller, Chris Godwin, and Leonard Fournette did not practice today. Scotty Miller had hip and groin injuries. Chris Godwin had his hamstring injury that kept him out of practice, which he left in last week's game with. He is expected to miss this game and might miss the next contest in Week 5 on Thursday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. And Leonard Fournette was held out of practice today with an ankle injury. Jason Pierre-Paul also showed up on the injury report, but he's been showing up on the injury report every single week this season with a knee injury, but it's just because he gets to have a Veterans Day off. But by league rules, he has to be listed on the injury report if the Buccaneers do give him a day off. But yeah, just so if you're wondering and you see Jason Pierre-Paul on the injury report, I don't ever mention him just because unless it's something serious that the team reveals, but he's just always expected to play the following week unless otherwise stated. Now looking at the key stats for the players in this game. So last week, I pretty much highlighted the quarterback, running back, and wide receiver kind of trio. And this week, I'm going to be doing the same. And for this week, I'm going to be highlighting as the key player for the opposing team, the backup quarterback that has had to come in to replace the starter. But unlike with the Broncos, I think the Chargers have a real future behind who they have starting at quarterback this week. And that is the 6th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. And that is former Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert. Now, he's looked pretty solid through the 2 games that he started against the Chiefs and Panthers. Obviously, has made a few critical rookie mistakes, which you would expect as he transitions into the NFL. But so far, he's looked pretty sharp and solid through these 2 games, replacing Tyrod Taylor, who continues to deal with the punctured lung that he suffered as a result of the team doctor trying to give him an injection for his bruised ribs, and he accidentally punctured his lung. So, unfortunate situation for Tyrod, but Justin Herbert, thankfully, has been able to step in and do quite a good job, I think, as a starter. But looking at his stats from last week's loss against the Panthers, he had 35 completions on 49 attempts for 330 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Now, he did make quite a few critical mistakes in that game. Obviously, the interception had a few bad throws, and even going back to the Chiefs game, a really ugly interception in that one. But he has looked really sharp moving outside the pocket. He's a very athletic quarterback, so he's got all the traits you would want in the modern NFL quarterback, where you would expect them to make throws on the run, be quick, and move outside the pocket. Justin Herbert does check those boxes, but what I think he needs to improve on, obviously, is his decision-making. As the first couple weeks of the season, he has struggled with that in the mistakes that he has made, especially on those interceptions that he has thrown. Now, Keenan Allen is also a really important player I want to highlight, and that is because he has developed a really nice rapport with Justin Herbert through the 2 games that they have played together. Last week, Keenan Allen against the Panthers, he torched their secondary. He had 13 receptions for 132 yards, 1 touchdown, and averaged 10.2 yards per catch in that game. And in my opinion, Keenan Allen is one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL and certainly should be talked about as one of the league's best. And I really like him as a player. You know, you could kind of compare him in that respect to Mike Evans. They're both 2 underrated receivers in the NFL that have been getting it done for many years with 1,000-yard seasons after 1,000-yard seasons and Pro Bowl appearances, but they just seem to not get the respect they deserve as being included as the cream of the crop of the receivers in the NFL. But I think that's a really important reason why we need to keep an eye on Keenan Allen, as he is one of the league's best and should be included in some of the conversations for who some of the best are in the league, and especially in the route running department. Keenan Allen is one of the best route runners in the NFL. Also, I wanted to highlight Austin Ekeler, the running back for the Chargers, because he really shined last year, kind of taking over the number 1 running back role from Melvin Gordon, who obviously I highlighted in last week's game as we faced the Broncos. But Austin Ekeler really has taken over the number 1 running back role for the Chargers, and he has done a great job with it. He's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the NFL, in my opinion. On a stat sheet last year, that certainly showed he had over 90 receptions and almost 1,000 yards. And to start the season on the ground, he's had 47 carries for 236 yards and 1 touchdown, which came last week against the Panthers, averaging 5 yards per carry. In the receiving department, he's had 16 receptions for 142 yards and averaging 8.9 yards per catch. What I also found that was interesting is that Ekeler has been targeted 16 times this season as a pass catcher, and he has caught all 16 of his targets. So he is a very reliable pass-catching running back, and obviously why I think he's one of the best in the NFL, as his statistics do really back up his performance on the field. Now, turning things over to the Buccaneers side of things, obviously I highlighted in the injury report that Scotty Miller did not participate in practice today as of when I am recording this, but if he does play, which I think he will, he should be listed as questionable going into this week's game. I think he's going to have a really big impact, considering that I think he's had a great start to the season and that this will be his breakout year. In addition to the injury to Chris Godwin, it'll also increase his opportunities to put up some good production this week. Looking at his stats so far in 2020, he's only had 10 receptions, but he's made the most of it with 167 yards receiving, averaging 16.7 yards per catch. Doesn't have a touchdown catch yet this season, but really should have against the Panthers. But he's also had some really nice moments, like against the Saints and the Broncos. Last week, he had a really nice catch on the deep ball from Tom Brady. I was really impressed with that. That was one of his 3 catches on the day last week. So yeah, Scotty Miller is looking poised to have himself a big game this week, especially with Chris Godwin being out. It's going to give him more opportunities to show that he is developing into another great weapon for our offense. Now, as far as the prediction for this game goes, obviously this week we're going to be at least without Godwin, maybe Sean Murphy-Bunting, and while those will be some key losses, I think we'll still be able to get our rhythm going on offense, and the defense, as I've established in the last few videos, has been one of the league's best to start the season. And with a rookie quarterback in Justin Herbert and seeing how well our pass rush did last week against the Broncos, I just think that's going to create a lot of trouble for Justin Herbert, and he's just going to be under pressure and make some of those bad decisions like I did mention that he has made. So yeah, I think that will kind of continue against our defense this week. And I think this also could be the week in which our offense finally gets things clicking and we start to put up numbers similar to what we were putting up last year. And also the injury to Chris Harris is kind of a big blow for that Chargers secondary, who was already missing Derwin James for the season. So just looking at those factors, I think it could be a high-scoring game, and that's what I'll predict it to be. But it could be lower scoring as well, as both of these teams, I think, have some of the best defenses in the league. But I think this will be a game where the offenses put on a show. So I'll predict the final score to be 31-28, Buccaneers winning. So that is going to be it for me this week. Let me know what you think about Week 4's games in the comments below. If you're a Steelers or Titans fan watching this, I feel really bad for you. Sorry that you had to get your game postponed. That was a very unfortunate situation. If you hadn't heard about it, Titans players tested positive for coronavirus as well as 5 personnel. So their game against the Steelers that was supposed to be played this week has been postponed to a later date. It'll most likely be replayed Week 7 due to how they're going to fix the schedule around with who has their bye week and whatnot. But yeah, that's the first real situation of the coronavirus really taking out a game in the NFL this season. So hopefully it's just an anomaly and no other major cancellations happen because of coronavirus. But other than that, hope you guys enjoy the Week 4 slate of games, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching, and go Bucs.